Hello, this is Greg Allison of Green Gregs coming to you late night on the 18th of February, 2021. It is time on deck, 2,300 hours straight up. Now, I probably won't post this tonight because it's late. By the time I get it recorded and uploaded, it may be too late to post it. So it'll be most likely in the morning on the 19th of February. So all this said, Texas is a mess right now. The power outages, other effects from the storm, but Texas has been hit especially hard, but it's going to ripple out to other states, and there's many causes. This is really a perfect storm of causes, but this has implications to things that we ought to know. Many of you know that I have chaired 2 power grid defense conferences. So I take this power grid defense very, very serious because our whole nation is vulnerable. And this points out weaknesses that we need to know about for our system across the United States, and the kind of things that I've been talking about, and how the industry kind of whitewashes things over and papers things over and tries to take care of themselves for the most part. So I'm going to cover several things about the causes, the effects, and I'm even going to show you a letter from the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, to the Department of Energy, requesting leniency on some of the restrictions on some of their operators so they could generate more power. And this is on the Department of Energy website. So it's not like a lot of the other letters and junk you've been seeing floating all over YouTube and social media, Facebook, you know, the legend, all kind of stuff. This letter is on the Department of Energy website, and it's kind of a black eye on them that they posted it. So this is legit. Okay, all that said, here's what you need to know. 60% of the homes in Texas rely on electricity for heat. A lot of them really aren't prepared for what they have to deal with. Oh yeah, I've got a daughter in Houston, so I take this real personal. This is personal to me in that regard. I have a daughter, 2 grandkids, and a son-in-law. So it turns out that the Electric Reliability Council of Texas supplies 90% of the state's electric power. I mean, you know, Texas has its own power grid, but it's not exactly line for line unique to Texas. It has customers outside of Texas, to include customers in Mexico. So this also affects people in Mexico, but most of the statistics we're hearing is how it's affecting people in Texas. So what you might want to know is that they've had something like 4.3 million customers. Sometimes people get customers and people confused. A customer is a household. 4.3 million customers without power, and that is out of their 26 million total customer base. So it's a lot more people than 4.5 million, 46 million. I'm just going to show you the website in a little bit, you know, the power outage website, so you can see what the running totals are at the moment. We're going to go into that. It has improved. That's the good news. It has improved, but there are other shortages coming up, food, water, and we're going to get all in that. Before we go into that, though, I want to just remind you that these shortages, including food and water, are things that you need to prepare for yourself. You need to get ahead of the game. Don't be like the toilet paper peppers when certain bugs start going around. You might find you have nothing to be wiping with. So you don't want to get there. So prep ahead of time. But right now, there's a real good deal on prepping ahead of time that I can make available to you on prepwithgreg.com. Go to prepwithgreg.com and you can get, yes, this is lightweight. You can get, this is 2 weeks supply of food. You can get a special for 2 of these, which is 4 weeks, or you can get 1 of these for 2 weeks. And about the center of the discount that you get is 20%. A little bit less on these 2 of them, and a little bit under 20% on 1. But it averages about 20% discount. Prepwithgreg.com. 2 or 1. 2 is a 4 weeks food supply, 4 weeks of 2,000 calories per day. You get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a deal that'll make you a winner because that's about $8.10, 11 cents per day per person. That's pretty darn good for the kind of food you get here. This is real food. It's, you know, it's not, you know, fast food. It's not MREs. I mean, check this out. This is creamy chicken flavored rice. You know, we got pancake mix in here. I spilled some pancake mix in here, and I got a mess here. Here's a traveler stew. Let's see, I got that pancake mix in here. Yeah, you can see that up here. But yeah, I didn't seal it right. They do have, you can open them up, and they got a little silver pouch, but I was throwing these things around too much. A little silver pouch broke on. So that pancake mix went woof. Hey, it's good pancake mix, good food. I'm gonna have to do some videos making some of this. But what you might want to know, there's a lot of other prepping supplies available. If you go to prepwithgreg.com and click on the My Patriot Supply logo at the top, it'll take you into the My Patriot Supply website, which still helps me and will help you because you can find a lot of other prepping supplies that you may need, especially water filtration. In Texas right now, they're having water shortages and they're told to boil their water. Why? Because the water levels are low and their purification systems probably just aren't working right. So the customers, the people in Texas have been told to boil their water before they drink it. Bada bing, bada bang. There we go. And I got videos. I've done a video. If you look back in my channel, I did a video on purifying and sanitizing water. No, Dave Hodges, that's not the same thing. Yeah, there's other big channels, much bigger than mine, that don't give you the real skinny on things like I do. And I show you many methods to do that, including using plastic bottles which and stuff from Mother Nature that can't cost you a penny. But it might have to really work at it to make that work. So there you go. Yeah, some of those water filters are really good, but they don't take out viruses. Okay, that's when you got to sanitize the water in addition to purify it. Purifying is filtering, getting all the crowd out and hopefully your bacteria. But to sanitize it, you kill the living organisms. Okay, Mr. Dave Hodges, that's the difference. All righty, so let's get on with this. Like I said, there's been something in the order of 4.3 million homes, customers out of power in Texas, and it's been a rolling blackout. See, the electric grid instantaneously, when everything's working, and it usually is, provides exactly the amount of power that's being consumed. But sometimes, like when you have severe weather, either the capacity may be down or demand may be up, or it may be both. Like I said, we're having a perfect storm of events here that have caused these problems. And in the world of safety and mission reliability and the kind of things I work, we know that problems usually occur not when you got one hole or deficit in your system. Like if you think of this like a slab of cheese and a Swiss cheese and it's got a few holes in it. When you have a real problem is when you have the different slabs, because you layer stuff, protective things, to try to prevent a problem. And a hole is what can cause the problem to get through. Well, when you have multiple protective layers and the holes line up, bada bing, you got a problem. And here are the holes lined up because we had the demand. We had the lower supply. And we got to talk about when we had lower supply. That's interesting because there's also many answers to that one. Now, get back to it. Like I said, 60% of people in Texas are using electricity for heat. And out of that, the rest are using, a lot of them are using propane and natural gases, which also were probably not provide quite the heat they need because they're under such demand. The pressure is down in the lines. I'll come back to that also. So that's also an issue. So I've read in one case it said 30% of ERCOT's generating capacity was all power. But actually, if you divide 4.3 or divide by 26 million customers, that runs like over 16.5%. So I don't know where these writers and all these mainstream news media is always so correct. I haven't found them correct on the darn thing they've ever said about anything. So, if you listen to mainstream news media, you are a zombie. Come to Greg Allison, Green Greg's, or Galactic Greg's, because I'll research and get you the facts. I can actually run a calculator on occasion. For those that don't know, math was my collegiate sport. Yes, indeed. At the University of Alabama in Huntsville. So there we go. All right, so let's get back to it. So what we do know is that there's actually 45,000 megawatts. Mega's a million. You add another 1,000 to it, you get a billion. So it's 45 billion watts, okay? I don't know why they don't say it that way, but I'll stick with the convention. 45,000 megawatts of capacity that are offline right now in Texas. Of that, now a lot of people have said, "Oh, it's all wind energy." And no, it can't be wind energy because it's supposed to coast. It's don't blame these guys. No, it's everything put together. It does include the wind problems because you wouldn't have this problem if it wasn't for everything put together. Like I said, the holes in the Swiss cheese have lined up. So those people that want to shove one thing or another thing, and it's not that because it's this, you're wrong. It's all of it. It's all of it. Oh yeah, we got to talk about some food shortages too, guys. It's all of that stuff. Firewood shortages. I don't have enough time in Texas, my friends, and I'm going to pay for it in the rest of the country in some degree. But there's a warning here for the rest of us, okay? Now, out of the 45 megawatts, 45,000 megawatts are offline. 15,000 is from wind generators. And they're offline because they're having maintenance issues. A lot of them were iced up. You know, those big wind vanes get iced up. They just don't turn. Ice is heavy. I just did, snow is heavy. I just did a couple of videos where I was out the wee hours of this morning digging snow off my greenhouse. My greenhouse almost collapsed. I know a lot of you are going, why is it Greg did a video on this power grid thing? This is what he does. Well, I had my own personal emergencies I was dealing with. I saved my greenhouse, but it's damaged. Yeah, I should have got there a little earlier, but I was in another video, and then boy, it piled up on me fast. It was heavy. I survived the snow in the past, but this time it just didn't. I had some holes in the Swiss cheese that lined up on me too. Okay, we could talk about those later. That's a whole nother subject. One thing again, it wasn't one thing. There was a couple things where I had protective barriers and it had chinks or holes in them. They lined up. So 30,000 megawatts of the production capability, twice the capacity of the wind, is coal, and this offline is coal and natural gas. So you got coal and gas systems offline at 30,000 megawatts, 30 billion watts, and 15,000 megawatts of wind offline. And some people say, well, that's why you can't blame it on the wind. Actually, see, the total amount that was short that caused these rolling blackouts was 38,000 megawatts. So there, you can add in all the coal and natural gas going offline, and you still are short. So yes, the wind does add in. And I think you just spread that across all three of them. The wind does add in. It's part of the problem. Maybe not the key problem or the chief culprit, but it's definitely in the matrix, in the mix. But there are special reasons that some of this oil and coal, the natural gas facilities are offline. And so why would that be again? Well, we know there's increased demand. So what we've had, given the 38,000 megawatt disparity, is increasing demand versus supply. But on the supply side of it, gas pressure's down. That's part of maybe what could be hitting some of these gas generating plants. But there's a lot more than that. It just so happens they shut a lot of them down there supposedly, allegedly, for scheduled maintenance. Now, why are they like rebuilding a plant? Why can't they, when they see these storms coming, get them back online? Actually, they could have got some of them back on. That's why we're going to go into this letter. A lot of these plants were offline to meet emission requirements. And to the credit of ERCOT, they actually sent a letter to the Department of Energy requesting waiver on these. Apparently, that didn't work out too well. But it's actually on the website of the Department of Energy. So this is an official letter. It's sitting here, all this stuff running around on the internet. Like we've seen before, so-called highly substantiated claims that things were going down, back with letters and videos and witness testimonies, and when you come down to it, all that was bogus. Some of those things never happened. I won't go into that today. All right, so it's important to do your research to back things up. Well, this letter's Department of Energy. I'm going to show you. And why am I saying that? Because there's going to be a lot of people who say, that's a lie, that's fake, that's not real. Oh, yes, it is. Okay. I'm tired of hearing that kind of stuff. I don't bring you that junk some of the other channels bring you. When I bring it to you, you can put it in the bank. If I tell you definitive, a lot of stuff I don't give definitive. I say maybe, possibly, or I ask a question. That's open-ended. But when I say something is, put it in the bank. All right, there we go. So let's go back to this bank. Well, we're about to go look at some of these things here online here. So what you need to know is that some of these facilities are actually down because they're having maintenance issues with the cold weather. They can't operate properly. They're having maintenance issues, just like the wind power plants. And it may be your gear oil's messed up. It's just too cold for it to operate in some systems. I don't know what all the problems might be, but I'm hearing that weather does contribute to some of these power outages. Okay. But part of this is that the grid just isn't as resilient as it should be. You may know I've done a couple of videos with Command Sergeant Michael Mabee, and he has filed Freedom of Information Act request on several instances where he knows that the power grid companies have swept things under the rug about issues they're having that are literally reportable issues with the grid. They don't want the public to know about this stuff because they don't want the regulations on them. So they sweep things under the rug and try to hide things. Yeah, and including, it's like this letter put out. They didn't really announce that. If you see the other news articles, what are they talking about? They're talking about other stuff. They're talking about, oh, well, it's the global warming. We're having this problem because of global warming. It's a little cold to me right now. Oh yeah, I did have one of my brother channels, Canadian Prepper, was talking about how, in his opinion, global warming, the warming of the Arctic causes the jet stream to get more serpentine. And it's the serpentine jet stream that's going to cause you more problems in the future. Well, now, I have over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, done a video where I was talking about the serpentine jet stream. It was going to bring you a lot more problems. But I attributed that to the rapid weakening of Earth's magnetosphere. And so, okay, the jury's out. Why is the jet stream getting more serpentine? That does portend more problems. But it could be, he makes his argument. Okay, fine. I'll respect that. But I do ask the question, would not the Arctic getting warmer just decrease the, it's like voltage. The more voltage you get behind a system, the more current you get. When you decrease the voltage difference between one plate and another, what do you get? Less current. Seems like the jet stream would be not as severe. It might be more serpentine, but it wouldn't be as severe, wouldn't be as strong if it didn't have more drive behind it, or if it had less drive behind it. It's just me applying electrical engineering to this equation, my friends. Voltage equals current divided by resistance. Current equals voltage. No, voltage equals current times resistance. Excuse me. Current equals voltage divided by resistance. Ohm's Law. That's electrical engineering 101. If you can't do Ohm's Law, don't be an electrical engineer. And that is, it's like EIR. They also refer to it as EIR, or sometimes they call it E for voltage. That voltage equals current times resistance. Current equals voltage divided by resistance. If you want resistance, just divide voltage by current. There you go. Figure all these things out. Really simple. Algebraic, 5th grade algebra. All right, all that said, suffice it to say, whoever's right, global warming, magnetic field, global grand solar minimum. Yeah, we're in for more stuff, but sorry, and our grid's not prepared for that. But also, our grid's not prepared for the kind of things I've been warning you about: EMP, CME, the direct ballistic attacks, the hacking attacks, all these things that can bring our grid down that I talk about. And I've told you before, is our magnetic field, the Earth's magnetic field, continues to decrease, and it is decreasing. We become more and more vulnerable. I'm going to do a video on that real soon about the magnetic field and what that means to us. That's coming up real soon, maybe in my next one. Because there's a new study out about the vulnerabilities from the decrease in strength of the magnetic field. There we go. So now, all right, all that said, the thing to keep in mind here is that these companies have been papering over what's going on. In the United States, see, in Texas, you got the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT. That is a nonprofit corporation. Well, it's an industry-owned corporation. It protects the industry, not serving the people of Texas. That's why Governor Greg Abbott of Texas has said they're anything but reliable. And he's actually calling for a bill to reform ERCOT in the Texas legislature. See, that's a good step, because there's a lot of things. And so here's what you need to do. If you're in Texas, talk to your Texas legislature, your House representatives and your Texas State Senate, the guys that serve you in Austin, and tell them to support Greg Abbott's bill or his initiative on this, whatever he comes out with. Because Texas needs to get down the bottom of it, but you need to take it a step further. And above all else, get our grid hardened. I mean, Texas was so proud to have their own grid. I've had a lot of people telling me that. I've known all along. I said it in previous videos, but it's not hardened, my friends. And you see this, look, it's just failed you. It has failed you. Well, that can happen with all their other grids too. Texas just happens to be the canary in the coal mine for us. Look what we've been seeing going on in California and so many other places. The grids are antiquated, they're out of date, and they got old stuff. That doesn't mean you need a smart grid. If a smart grid is more susceptible to EMP, it's not very smart. And that's what most of your smart stuff is. It'll fry easier with an EMP. Not very smart in my book. You need to make the old stuff more resilient. You know, one of the key things for hardening the grid from EMP is you get ground current. When this stuff discharges, it actually comes through the ground and comes up through your ground lines sometimes. Yeah, that's why I don't trust certain other little devices you hear so much about. But so yeah, it's on the power lines. It comes up through the ground. You get it in several different ways in this case. But the one of the key things to protecting the grid would be to put a series of shunts or surge blockers in line with the center tap, the ground on these big high voltage transformers. That's the best thing you do to protect those most vulnerable elements. For the SCADAs, the supervisor control and data acquisition computers that run the networks, put them in Faraday cages or have spares in Faraday cages at least. But seal them off as much as you can. That's what you can do. And there's a way with opto isolators to seal even an operating system to a high degree. So you can take a system that's in operation and use something called opto isolators, and you can give it a lot of isolation. You don't have to have the direct current from the outside systems going into it. Opto isolators are light. Okay, that's something else that can be worked out down the road. Now, yeah, they're like LEDs and receivers. They talk back and forth that way. All right, so yeah, they're actually using military systems. Military systems use opto isolators. I've done tank electronics, F-15 electronics. There's a lot of opto isolators and input-output cards in military systems to give them resiliency and safety from power surges and to help protect them from EMP to some degree. To some degree. All right, so let's go back into this. I'm going to show you some charts here. I got to tell you that so get behind Texas and help them if you're there with Governor Abbott's thing. That is hope, but we need to take that on nationwide. Let's do a share screen. I'm gonna go here, right here, guys. Here it is. This is a letter from the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, and it's to the Honorable David G. Husgina, I don't know, Acting Secretary of Energy, United States Department of Energy. And if you look up here, this is energy.gov. I'm bringing this to you from the Department of Energy's website. If you erase all this other stuff, you will see you're at the home page of the Department of Energy's website. So this letter is posted by the Department of Energy. And it starts out, pursuant, code, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. The regulations are under 202C of the Federal Power Act, FPA, Part 205, Subpart W of the Regulations, Department of Energy. So he's narrowing in what part of the control the federal government has over them that he's citing here, okay? Background, we're in the beginning stages of unprecedented cold weather event. Okay, now see, they were ahead of the curve. I got to give them credit for this. This was Valentine's Day, 14 February. So they had the good sense just ahead of this storm to write and ask for some alleviation from the problems they had. And they say ERCOT continues to work with the affected utilities that generates and secure adequate supply to meet unexpected energy and reserve requirements. Okay, I'm trying to read severe into that. So what they're talking about here, if you get on down, is some of these generators are shut down because the output from all these generators subject to these regulations would help mitigate the impact of rotating outages on Texas consumers during an extreme cold weather event. ERCOT seeks an immediate order from DOE authorizing the provision of additional energy from all generating units subject to emissions or other permit limitations. For clarity, this request is not limited to those generating units identified in Exhibit A. They've got a list below here of units that's actually under this. So this is a very comprehensive letter. They did their homework. They talked in here about various pieces of this. Let's see. ERCOT does not lightly request authorization. Oh, we hate it. We're asking you to bend the regs here, but we're in deep trouble. This is a crisis we're trying to avert. Yeah, you know, we've lost over 30 people in Texas because of this crisis. And I'll show you a highlight I saw on that for in generation. So it goes all into this federal level too. I'm not going to read this whole letter to you. It's all in here. It does go into detail about the actual emissions that have been controlled, that they're trying to seek alleviance from. But it's all in this letter. And here are actual units that are under regulation, that are underperforming, not running at full capacity, or shut down because of the regulation. You know, why have facilities if you have to shut them down to meet regulations? I mean, you know, we're going to build all this capacity, but we can't use it, but we're going to have all this capacity. You know, guys, yeah, see, the regulations are getting us here. I guess they're all trying to prevent global warming. Well, I do the global warming. All right, so there you are. There's that part. And here, look at this headline. Man found frozen to death in his recliner in Texas winter as storm death toll rises. Man frozen to death. And here it says they found his wife next to him, almost dead, and they sent her to the hospital. Well, I don't know about frozen to death. You know what you usually die from is hypothermia, which, you know, your temperature drops too low and your body can't survive it. It doesn't mean you're frozen solid like a brick of ice. You die long before you get to that point. Now, maybe he was frozen solid. Maybe he'd been dead long enough that he was frozen. I don't know. I won't argue with it. But he didn't freeze to death. He died from hypothermia, and then maybe he froze solid. Of course, that's just a euphemism. That's the way we use language. But they talked about some homeless people in here and some others. Yeah, there have been people directly taken out by this cold. Now, we'll go back here and look right now. Let me hit the refresh button. Let's make sure we got the latest data. It's supposed to update every 10 minutes anyway. At this moment, there's 217,000 customers, 217,363 customers in Texas out of power. That's still real high, but it's a big improvement over 4.3 million. But that's still a lot of people, and this has been going on for a long time, and it's caused a lot of problems. Louisiana's not out of the woods. Look here, 73,605. Mississippi, it's got 110,301. Red is the 100,000 threshold level. This dark brown is the next level at over 50,000 on these charts. See, Kentucky has got 55,656. West Virginia, 51,000. Now, see, West Virginia don't have that many people, so proportionally, these are heavy numbers up here. Virginia has actually got 27,000 out of power. California, 12,130. Oregon, 85,338 customers out of power. But just because you're not one of those colors don't mean you're out of power. Alabama still has 5,998 customers out, almost 6,000. Tennessee, not so bad, 1,921. So Alabama's gotten a little worse than Tennessee. Now, Tennessee had worse at one time. But, you know, we've got a lot of ice and snow around here. I just showed you, wiped out my greenhouse almost. So let's go to the next one. Hang on, I gotta wait on my menu for my video system is fighting the menu for my these web pages I'm on here. Texas power officials admit they do not know when outages will end. So they got problems they're still fixing. So that is a problem. Here's other problems, like I said. I hate these channels where commercials play. I actually go to them and visit them just before I do this video and try to stop all the commercials. So I shut down the Fox News when I had open because they got the worst commercials and videos to run. This is the Hill, which is a paper that's run up in the Washington D.C. area, but it's got interesting things in it. So Texas governor limits out-of-state natural gas shipments amid power shortages. We need it here, so we're not going to ship it there. So guess what? If you're out here in these other states and you're needing natural gas, two things are going to happen. Prices going up, supplies going down. You're getting shortages too now. So the wealth, the misery is getting spread around. That's what I was talking about. It's going to have ramifications other than other places. So, and not to mention, the citrus crops are highly at risk. Other crops in Texas are at risk because like farm animals, they're having a hard time getting water to them. All the water's frozen. So these farm animals are suffering. it's calving season in Texas. They're having issues with that. So the meat industry is having some real issues in Texas. The citrus industry is having some issues. It might be some of the even fresh vegetables grown, in southern Texas. You get far enough down in Texas. Texas is, kind of like South Florida and California. The biggest grower of citrus fruits in the United States, I believe, is California, followed by Florida and Texas being number 3. But Texas supplies a lot of our citrus fruits. So, and here we are. Texas regained some power, but food and water shortages persist. And here they're talking about in Texas having the bare shelves in the grocery stores, the stuff in the toilet paper prepper kind of issues. People didn't prepare ahead of time, like I always urge you to do. They didn't have stuff in their home to cover them and get them through these bad situations. But, hey, I got stuff here. So, all right. This is personal to me because I do have a daughter in Texas, and I've talked to her about this, and they've got electric heat. Their power has been off some. There are people whose power have been off almost continuously, though. It's supposed to be rolling blackouts, but some places they roll a lot less than others, or at least the power on part rolls less. Like the guy that was supposedly froze to death. Well, they'd been 30 hours without power or something crazy like that. So, yeah, there's issues, there's problems, and it's not equal everywhere how this has been implemented. Why do they have rolling blackouts? Because if they don't, they could have permanent damage to the power equipment, and then you got permanent blackouts. So they're trying to spread it around, but how they're doing it, in some places are having a worse time than others. That's some of the reports I'm seeing. Some of the power companies have got less availability than others to get things out to their customers. So less power available to them. On the grid, there's actually several different, sometimes you have like multiple producers of power, but you especially have multiple distributors. So you have sub-distributors that are tapped into this grid that distribute to neighborhoods and cities and different things. Like in my area, you've got the Tennessee Valley Authority that produces power for much of Tennessee, lots of North Mississippi, North Alabama, the Carolinas. They have a huge swath in which they're the power generator and supplier, but it's actually distributed to us customers by other smaller companies. So there's a lot of companies involved in that. Alabama Power runs a power south of here within Alabama. North Alabama is under Tennessee Valley Authority, which means we're not subject to the Public Services Commission in Montgomery, unfortunately. So it's hard for us to get use the state to apply pressure to a federal agency. All right, all that stuff. So hey, these are some things that we deal with when we're working power grid defense issues, my friends. So my daughter told me that they had just put in a new AC unit, which was a heat pump. And she said, well, the heat pumps not working. I said, yeah, they do work. I got a heat pump here, and the only reason it's not working is it just, it's an old one and it just wore out. And so I'm not, but I got heater strips on. So you should have heater strips in your system. She said, well, we do, but it's got only 2 strips. And they told us that we can get it upgraded to add more. So that's what you need to do. But they're actually heating with wood. They're using their fireplace. Fortunately, they got a fireplace in their living room, nice big fireplace, and they're heating their home with that fireplace. It's not the most efficient way to heat, but it will heat, and it does heat the room. But she told me they had to wait 2 hours in line just to get firewood, because she said normally they'd have plenty, but you know what? The demand is up. And again, that's another thing. If you'd had enough stuck that ahead of time, but they don't ever have heat down there. She told me that she's lived down there almost 12 years now, and they had snow one day out of that 12 years, and it was the one day that's gone. This is the most they've had down there. So that's my oldest daughter. She's living, near Houston. And so they're having problems with lines to go get firewood. There's lines to go get groceries apparently now. Grocery stores, shelves are barren. So why? Because maybe the trucks to get there, a lot of the supply chain starting to break down and unravel. So that happened when the bug went around. Our supply chain is fragile. And that's what I talked to you about with that grid. Trucks don't roll without fuel. Fuel don't get pumped without electricity. And also trucks need a lot of maintenance, especially those big trucks. Ask Skinny Trucker how much he spends and how often he's got to replace this, that, or the other. I mean, you've got seals and bearings and all kind of mechanical parts that wear and tear and go clank or blank. Hey, I got to throw a little rhyme in. The stuff that just quits operating. Lots of systems, lots of components, and that is maintenance. You just got to take it in, get it replaced when it happens. But over time, all your vehicles wear out. And if you don't have a supply chain operating, you're in trouble. Today, everything we do is relying on the internet. We use power, electricity to run everything in our society, our phones, our communications, the water. Yes, you don't have water without electric power to run the pumps to pump all this stuff up in the municipal towers and storage facilities. Once the water's gone from that, you got a problem. That's what's happening in Texas. They don't have enough power to keep replenishing those, and so the water levels are getting low. Water pressure is low. That may mean that the contaminants can seep into a pipe from outside rather than whenever you got a leak, instead of it being kind of oozing from the outside to the inside. I mean, from the outside, yeah, from the inside to the outside. It's like you want positive pressure in a room if you want to keep bad air out, or keep if you have a HEPA filter system, or maybe keep bugs out or something like that. You have the wind curtains when you walk in. A lot of grocery stores are used to, where they blow air as like an air curtain that would discourage insects from flying in. Things like that. There's a lot of different things. But so what's the takeaway from this for you? One, if you're in Texas, get behind Governor Abbott. Two, the rest of us, we've got to get behind power grid defense. Our power grid is weak, and these companies have been lying to us. And on the federal level, you have the federal agency is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The industry association is the National Electric Reliability Corporation. Sounds a lot like the Texas ERCOT, right? So especially the FERC and NERC. See, the National Electric Reliability Corporation is a industry-owned company, and it, through lobbying and various other pressures, got Congress to grant, or somebody along the line granted it. It's got permission to actually create the regulations that regulate them. All FERC does is rubber stamp them. NERC and FERC have I've said in previous videos that in government agencies, the regulator and the regulatee usually have a very incestuous relationship, revolving doors of employment between them, and they get very intertwined. And so instead of serving you, the agency was set up to do, is serving the company, which is going to drain you blue. And so the kind of things that they're telling you they're protecting you from, no, they're protecting the bottom line of the big corporations. And they're usually walking on and wiping out the smaller ones. And that's even true in the energy sector in Texas. The federal subsidies have been helping the big companies and squashing the mom and pop oil wells, the smaller outfits. I keep telling you, this whole thing has been set up. I can do one on agriculture soon. In many ways, they're trying to wipe out the family farms. The big companies are getting all the subsidies, and you got people running around buying up land like Mr. Gates. Where's all that going? All right, but we're on the power situation here. So back to power. What they're telling us at the federal level about our grid is not true. From the National Electric Reliability Corporation, it's not true. And they fight us. We've got a lot of engineers and smart talent trying to get our grid hardened, but they pour millions of dollars into their lobbyists. We don't have anything like it. We're grassroots organizations. We're pushing to get the grid hardened. So you'll need to join with us in writing letters. I often do videos of what to do and how to do it. So pay attention to those. And I put out things about what to do to get our grid hardened, especially as these various issues come up. So pay attention, watch me close, and I'll bring out more of this stuff, and I'll get more organized. I've got a Power Grid Defense website. In fact, my website is powergriddefense.org. And so far, it's still back on the conferences I ran. Last one in 3 years ago, but I'll update that. Well, 2.5 years ago. I'll update that in the not too distant future after I do the Freedom Restoration Foundation website, and after I do the website for my worms, getting them back up online and getting a few other things. I got a lot of stuff on the table, man. I mean, I've got a full-time job. I've got my market garden greenhouse, which is under running capacity right now and now damaged. I got my worm farm. I'm president of Freedom Restoration Foundation, and I'm a member of 2 power grid defense committees. A lot of people just come out here and say, well, hey, you need to get ready. I'm actively engaged, guys. I'm trying to do these things, but I get a little sleep. I'm stretched really thin. So, but I'm bringing you these things so you know that you can get involved. Sometimes all you need to do, if you guys just would write a letter, make a phone call, or send an email, that would help. In fact, you can do that now. You can call your representatives, your state legislators, or I tell you what, call your federal representatives. Say, hey, we want to harden, but also contact your state representatives. Say, hey, we need to harden our grid in our state. And that's why what we've been taking on lately. So just start putting that bug in their ear. And this would be a good time to say, again, what's going on in Texas? We want our grid to be resilient and hardened against EMP and CME. Against EMP. If you're hardened from EMP, it automatically covers CME. That's a good thing about it. So just go ahead and harden at the level of EMP. All right, my friends, I've gone long here, but this is a critical issue. Yeah, I'm talking 40 minutes. Yeah, I probably not want to air this tonight, but my friends, in the end, we can win this, but we got to pull together. Remember, this is more of us than there are of them. So with all that said, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching.